When Republicans began their crusade to limit voting rights across the country, they openly expressed concern that their own voters might not be happy with what they're doing. And, according to the latest round of polling, those fears have now been confirmed. 52% of Republican voters across this country do not support the overall efforts by Republicans at the state level to enact voter suppression laws. Small majority, very small, but it's still a majority. Across the country as a whole, 70% of the public is not happy with the voter suppression laws. And again, a majority of people in this country want Republicans to sign on to the For the People Act, which is the massive voting rights expansion bill currently trying to make its way through Congress. So here's the thing. We know, obviously based on this new polling and of course the Republican fears which have now come to fruition, that Republicans expected this to happen. So this is not a shock to them, but it is an area for concern because the poll also shows that Republican voters do want to limit money in politics. They want to limit foreign influence in politics. They don't like all the other suppressive measures, though, that the Republicans are doing. So everything the Republicans stand for, even their own voters right now are saying, yeah, we don't like that. And of course, we discussed this over at Ring of Fire, you actually have Republicans in Florida, the lawmakers in Florida are now freaking out because they just now realized their own voter suppression measures in the state to limit voting by mail could cut off as many as 35% of their voting base here in the state of Florida. They spent decades pushing their Republicans in Florida to vote by mail, and now they've just limited it. 35% of Republicans in Florida voted by mail in 2020, so now they're having a big oh crap moment. And that's really what most of the voter suppression is going to end up being for these Republicans. The only thing that overcomes voter suppression is massive turnout. And even then, it's still very difficult to do. But believe it or not, I mean, we've seen it happen. Hell, we saw it happen in 2020. There were plenty of restrictive voting measures in place that still didn't stop enough people from voting, and they were able to, get their votes in and help shape that election. Happened in 2016. It happened in 2012 and 2008. Voter suppression, voter purges, photo ID laws, these are things that, we have been discussing. I've been discussing in some form or fashion for 17 years now. This is nothing new. And the Republicans are getting more extreme with it, obviously, but they're getting so extreme with it that even their own base is saying, we're not liking what we're seeing anymore. We're no longer okay with this. And like in the case of Florida, you're actually screwing us over too now, you jerks. 2022 is going to be very interesting, especially if the Democrats do not get the For the People Act passed. They get that thing passed, we may not have to worry as much about these voter suppression efforts, but the other downside of that is if the states pass the laws first, it's going to be a lot harder for a Republican judge to say that the federal law is going to supersede the state law. So there's some legal battles that could come even if the Democrats pass the For the People Act. But at the end of the day, all of that is something we have to deal with in the future. Right now, Republicans have to worry about getting their own house in order because everything they're doing, from the voter suppression to the opposition to the infrastructure bill, the opposition to raising taxes on the wealthy, all of that is pissing off their own voters. And when you piss off your own people, they typically don't turn out in droves to support you in the next election.